Hello again. My name is Anne-Marie Zanzel, and welcome to Coming Out and Beyond LGBTQIA Plus Stories. I'm an ordained minister, bereavement counselor, conversationalist, spiritual wanderer, late in life lesbian, changemaker, blogger, author, mom of 4 kids, wife to my lovely spouse, Tonda McKay, a northerner living in the South and trying to figure it all out. I share the stories of people who are coming out later in life to the LGBTQIA plus community. These stories are compelling, heartbreaking, joyful, and inspirational. I started this podcast because we need to normalize exploration of sexuality and gender at all ages. Plus, visibility is vital to the LGBTQIA plus community. It is never too late to be who we are created to be. My guest proved that. Barbara Rolandson is a woman in her late 40s, almost 50. She came out at the age of 45. She is the mother of 2 kids, a 21-year-old transgender daughter and a 17-year-old cisgender daughter. She is a writer, online content strategist, and creator, and has a background in product development, wholesale and retail business management, and event management. For the past 17 years, Barb has lived in the small bayside town of Midland, Ontario. I'm sorry, it's not Midland. Yeah, it is. Small bayside town of Midland, Ontario, Canada, and this year will be pulling up roots to pursue her passion for flower farming in the Kubakunk. How do I say
Gobakant.
it? Okay. And this year will be pulling up roots to pursue her passion for flower farming in the Coboconk region of Ontario. After many years of dating in the lesbian world, Barb is now happily coupled with her girlfriend, Tammy. Hi, Barb. Welcome to the show.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for having me as your guest today.
I'm so excited to have you. So, Barb, tell me your story.
I'm so excited to be here. Well, I am a late in life lesbian, just like yourself and like a lot of your listeners. I came out when I was 45. I was married to my ex-husband for 21 years, and we were together for 24. Um, coming to sorry, how do I say this? Coming to the realization that I was gay was very sudden. It came upon me very suddenly. It happened with a catalyst.
And what's the
Um,
catalyst, Barb?
so, a catalyst is a person who enters your life who you suddenly have feelings for and makes you re examine your sexuality.
And I also know for some of us, it can be an event that happens in your life, a catalyst like you get divorced, or someone significant dies, or you have you have a serious illness. It sort of is something that makes us like reframe our lives. But your catalyst was a person.
Was a person, absolutely. And prior to meeting my catalyst, if you had told me that I was gay, I would have gone, Psh, what? No, that's not possible. Are you kidding me? No, no. However, she awakened something in me that I hadn't really realized. And when I reflect back on growing up and my experiences and thoughts and feelings, it seems so obvious to me now that I did have same sex attraction. But for the usual host of reasons, I shoved them aside or buried them.
Hmm.
I really did not do a good job connecting my attraction to women with my sexual desire.
Hmm.
I always thought, oh, I really admire her. Like I would frame it in my mind as admiration of a woman
Hmm.
who I was
Hmm.
attracted to. But I just didn't connect those dots to sexual attraction. And it wasn't until I met my catalyst that I did that.
So when you say for all the usual reasons, like what do you mean?
Well, I think, when you talk about conditioned versus authentic self,
Uh-huh.
I was very much conditioned um, without realizing it towards a heterosexual life. And I think, if I really am honest with myself, I had some internalized homophobia. I didn't come to realize that until much later. And like with a lot of people who experience internalized homophobia, it was absolutely okay for anyone in my life to be gay except me.
Except me. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's my definition of internalized. And a lot of times, like as you know, people in our community are often incredible allies before they come out because they subconsciously understand, even though it's
totally.
consciously. Yeah.
I was very at home in the LGBTQIA plus community.
Hmm.
Went to a theater school, so obviously I had tons of gay friends, and I was very at home in the queer community. And I always felt like that was my place, but I thought it was as an ally, but really there was something inside of me that wanted something different.
Hmm.
So I think, having gotten married so young, having experienced a lot of conditioning from society, from family, from friends, um, and that soupçon of internalized homophobia really meant that I didn't get to explore my genuine sexuality until much, much later in life.
Hmm. So you met a woman.
Sure did.
Yeah.
Yep. And
So let's talk about that because you're not with her anymore.
no, no.
Let's because that happens to a lot of us. And so let's talk about the whole catalyst and how you got over it.
For sure. And I mean, there's exceptions to every rule, but what I have noticed in the late in life lesbian community is a lot of times if there's a catalyst who's a person involved, it doesn't usually last.
It usually doesn't end well.
Yeah,
There are the exceptions. You know, when we talk about this, it's always a bell curve. There are always people that they marry their catalyst, but it's a very small minority.
absolutely. And my feeling about that is that it's because you're exploring your newfound sexuality with reference to another person, not to
Right.
yourself.
Right. She is the link to your queer identity in the beginning. Right.
Exactly.
In the
And
beginning.
it can be a whole lot less painful if you can do that exploration without a catalyst.
Mhm.
But so my coming out was very turbulent.
Mhm.
I had known for a very long time that I was unhappy in marriage. We, you know, there was a real distance. It was the kind of marriage where there wasn't a lot of intimacy. I would retreat to my craft room and he would retreat to the video game console, and we would spend a lot of time disconnected from each other. So I'd been thinking about leaving for about 10 years, and there's always a reason to defer it. The kids,
Mhm.
you know, I'll do it next year when I make more money, or I'll do it next year when
Well, and also
my
there's the
youngest is in high
conditioning.
school. Or
There is the conditioning in which women aren't supposed to leave their marriages.
Exactly. And it always seemed
If-
I was in a marriage where I didn't have a lot of power either.
Yeah.
I didn't drive a car.
Oh wow.
I, yeah. Oh no, I only got my license when I was like 46 years old.
Wow, Barb, that's incredible.
It was huge. It was huge, but I didn't drive a car. My name wasn't on any of the accounts. My name wasn't on the house. My name wasn't on the vehicle. Like I was pretty powerless in that marriage. So it seemed a bit hopeless until I got with my catalyst, who was a lifelong lesbian and
How
very
did
much.
you meet her?
I met her. We had a ton of mutual friends in town, and for a very long time, I had noticed her and was attracted to her, but I framed it as admiration. Wow, I really admire her. And she was a
So
very,
cool.
yeah, I know, very male presenting lesbian. And she was kind of a little bit butch, which just seems to be my type. Um, and I admired her from afar. And finally, in an event where we were both nominated for an award, a mutual friend introduced us, and we became friends, and we were friends for probably about a year and a half, and just connected as friends and created intimacy and friendship, I guess. And it didn't really occur to me until one time. I remember I was lying in bed and she texted me and she said that she had met someone and spent the night. And I was jealous. I was jealous. And here I am lying there thinking I'm a straight woman going, I was kind of like, oh, I was let down. Like, oh, she doesn't
Yeah,
like
I
me.
can imagine. Yeah.
She
So
doesn't like
was that
me.
your moment that you realized, oh shit, I may not be straight?
That was definitely a moment. And then, she confessed later on that she had some feelings for me. And I had said, like, I can't do that with you. I'm afraid of losing your friendship. But upon further introspection, I realized, like, oh, no, you know what? I'm definitely falling in love with this person.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to be a cheater.
Mhm.
Um, that was not what I wanted for myself, for my family. I know from personal experience and having lived in a family where there was infidelity, that it just affects the whole family, and there's no keeping that secret. I mean, it's really destructive for families. And I thought, no, I'm going to have some integrity. I've been thinking about leaving for a long time. I'm going to leave and I'm going to explore this possibility. And that's what I did.
Mhm.
Um, and it was very turbulent. It almost seems like as soon as I spoke it aloud to a friend of mine, who we went on a road trip to Nashville,
Mhm.
and she's also happens to be a counselor, and so it's a really long drive, and I got many, many hours of free therapy in the car. And as soon as I spoke it aloud, it was like I couldn't bear to hold the facade any longer.
Mhm.
It became literally unbearable for me.
Yes.
So I left. I left my family home. My kids were there. It was truly the hardest thing that I've ever done.
Mhm.
Um, my my kids were deeply affected, although my oldest was much more accepting, having been identified as a gay male at that point.
Mhm.
Actually said to me, Mom, we're the gay ones in the family. My youngest had a much, much harder time with it. She's 13. She was 13 at the time.
Mhm.
And learning to do things like live without my children every day, that was really, really tough.
Mhm.
I will say though that despite this, anything that is worth doing is often difficult.
Correct.
It is extremely difficult to upend your life. But if the payoff is authenticity, it is so worth it.
Mm.
And for anybody who is worried about their kids, because that was a huge one for me,
Right.
it was difficult at first. But if you ask my children now, they are so proud of their big, loud gay mom. And what I have taught them
Mhm.
by changing my life so radically is that they shouldn't settle either.
And also there's resilience in there. They had to change with the changes in their family.
Hmm.
And so you also taught them resilience as well. And there will be other things that happen in their life that they have to be resilient about, it's something they didn't ask for, but they have to learn to process those emotions and
Hmm.
deal with, you
Hmm.
know. Um, I want to get back to something you said really quickly.
Sure.
For you, you met this woman and you didn't want to have an affair. But that happens to a lot of women in our community. They have an affair. Have you reframed that thinking at all around that? Or like, because I feel like it's a much more complicated thing when woman falls in love and doesn't even really realize what they're getting into.
Hmm.
It's much more than just an affair. Have you rethought any of that about that?
You know, there's definitely a lot, I have now a lot less judgment
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
people who do have affairs,
Me too.
a lot less judgment,
I just
because
have, yeah.
you're
This is
taking what you need.
right. And also, this is the thing is that marriages we have no idea what goes on in a marriage. A marriage that looks perfectly happy from the outside can be very lonely and miserable. And a lot of times, one of the spouses refuses to connect while the other one is trying to, and they just
Mhm.
refuse. So I have I've lost all judgment about what people do with their lives. That's their life. And I understand for me as well, I knew that like my ex-husband and I, when we discussed all of this, we did the polyamory open marriage route and even talked about a threesome. And I'm like, well, Jim, if I sleep with somebody if I sleep with a woman, you're not going to be there. I mean, that just wasn't in my wheelhouse. And
Mhm.
so I left my marriage and met somebody after I left my marriage. I didn't know anybody beforehand. And so for me, that's what's working. But I think I know Barb really well, and we have no judgment for people that, have come to this realization and may have made different choices.
Sure. And, having lived through this experience, when I had made that decision to leave, it was really based on like my childhood experience,
Experience. Right.
my childhood frame of mind.
Right.
I just remember being a wounded kid with a parent who was so clearly not present. And the reason for them not being present was because they were with
Yep.
somebody else.
Right.
But now that I have lived through it and I'm an adult, um, and to be honest, like, I was having an emotional affair before it ever became
Right.
physical.
Physical. Right.
I
So
have a
tell me.
lot less judgment because it truly is a symptom of what's going on in your life. Um, yeah, I think we are human. We have
Well,
feelings.
and I also heard you say I made the decision responding from my conditioned self, but
Yes,
now that I'm authentically who I am, my conditioning around that, I've lost that, and that's how I
absolutely.
feel like I've lost it too. I have much more compassion about any of that stuff, and I also realize it's other people's lives, and I don't live their life, so I have a lot
Exactly.
of compassion. So
Hmm.
getting back to your catalyst,
Yes.
it was really bumpy.
It totally was. There was that very turbulent sort of, it seemed like everything happened all at once.
Yeah.
And it all happened very close together. And because it happened that way, there wasn't really the time for my catalyst and I to explore whether we genuinely were compatible. And it turns out we really weren't. We
Mhm.
had a lot of passionate feelings for each other, we had a lot of attraction for each other. But when it came down to it, we were very, very different people. And I was so early on in my journey that there were a lot of things I'm sure that I did that were very, very triggering for her. One
Mhm.
of them was I, in those early days, I did not consider myself a lesbian.
Mhm.
And that drove her crazy,
Mhm.
really upset her.
Right.
And because that's where I was in my journey. I didn't really know. I just knew that I was attracted to her, but I had been.
Well, and it's a lot of back and forth in your head, right? Like I remember I was with Tanda, my wife, for like 9 months or almost a year, and I literally said to her, "Maybe I'm not gay," and she looked at me and was like, you're not straight because you've been in a relationship with me I mean, and so I do think that we turn it over and our particular, our later in life community, we tend to turn things over and over in our heads. And I
For
agree with
sure.
you. There are things like one thing I would caution people to do if you're dating somebody who is a long time out lesbian and you are divorcing your spouse, find somebody else to talk to about that because
Hmm.
she's your lover and your love interest. And if you just think about this, if you were dating a new man, you wouldn't be talking about your husband all the time. You just wouldn't. And it's the same thing. And so it's sort of like learning those boundaries, learning those, like realizing that this is your lover and not your girlfriend, like straight women talk about, like, straight women, when we lived that life, you would talk to your girlfriend about something, but she didn't
Hmm.
want to hear about, like my wife, although she was sympathetic and loving and stuff, it was hard for her and to hear about that because she just wanted to go and have a nice happy relationship with me.
Right.
And
So
I was
she's,
like,
she's over here on her journey and you're over here. And yeah,
yeah, it took a lot. And she's written about that. So if you want to look on my
Mhm.
blog, you can see Tanda's take on our relationship. But
Mhm.
it sounds like you and your catalyst struggled with, you were so new.
So new, and just awakening to these feelings and not really knowing where I fell on the queer spectrum. And I really needed time and space to explore that. And I didn't have it because I was already in this new relationship. And, when I would say, well, I'm not really sure if I'm a lesbian, maybe I'm bisexual, maybe I'm pan, maybe, and that really upset her.
Mhm.
Um, had I had a little more time to percolate as a queer person before
Mhm.
starting a relationship,
Mhm.
it might have been more, well, no, I don't think it would have been more successful
No,
because we
probably
really
not.
were too different. But that time to percolate was needed.
Mhm.
And, I'll interject here to say that when you start thinking that you might be queer,
Mhm.
a lot of people, I think that, wow, I need to have a girlfriend. I need to try a relationship. That's what I need to do. That's not what you need. You know what you need? Community.
Yep,
You need,
exactly.
you need community of people. You need other queer friends who you can talk to who aren't romantic love interests,
Mhm.
who you can explore concepts around identity with.
Mhm.
And it's through community that you do end up meeting somebody eventually, but
Mhm.
taking that time to really figure out who you are as a queer person
Mhm.
is super duper important.
Mhm. Mhm.
So if you that's my would be my number one piece of advice. If you think you're queer, cultivate those queer friendships that
Friendships.
you may already have. If you already know lesbians or other queer people, start really working on cultivating those relationships. If you don't know anybody who's queer, get out into your community and find them. There's lots of
And
organizations.
and I just want to say, when you live in a straight community your entire life, even if you're an ally, you don't realize like how many queer people are around you.
So many.
And so many times people say, "Oh, well, I live in the middle of farming country in blah 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 blah." Yeah, it might take a little effort, but I'm going to tell you that there are queer people around you.
Totally.
And you just need to look and be, you're gonna, and the thing is we have to put ourselves out there. So you might have to join a Facebook group, you might have to join a meetup, but there, so a lot of times the queer people aren't going to fall on your lap. You need to go out and look for them.
You need to actually cultivate it and work on fostering those friendships and relationships. And you're absolutely right. I mean, if you do live in the middle of nowhere in farming country or a small town like I do, I mean, even in my small town, I have queer friends here. But if you can't find people in person, go online. There are tons of wonderful communities.
Yeah, like I have a secret community, so come and contact me and I can put you in that. And that's a great community. It's a
Oh,
great
for
community.
sure. And you can
Yeah.
develop really wonderful friendships
Friendship.
in those kinds of groups, and that are just as every bit as meaningful and with it every as much connection as you could need.
Hmm.
And they have really high value. So
Hmm.
find your community and then worry about finding a girlfriend, I think would be my biggest advice.
So you and your catalyst broke up. What was that like?
It was well, remember that very first time you thought you were in love? Maybe it was in high school,
Mhm.
and you had all those kind of big feelings. Maybe it was the first person you were intimate with, and then you broke up, and it felt like the world stops
Mhm.
and it's all over. You're absolutely wrecked beyond, and it is just like you're 16 again and breaking up for the first time. It's painful, painful.
How
And
long? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh, sorry, we were friends for about a year and a half, but we were together as a couple for about 8 months.
Okay.
So it didn't last in couplehood very long at all. And I had felt like I had given up so much to be with her. And it all came crashing down. And the reality of my new life just like hit me like a ton of bricks.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really tough. I was really, really sad. But over time, one foot in front of the other, I was able to pick myself up and start exploring who I genuinely was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I did a lot of writing, some reading, and months later, after the breakup, I started dating.
So that's what we're going to talk about now. This is Barb's Tales in the Lesbian
Oh
Dating World.
boy.
A lot of people are really, really super curious about, and it's like I uh, just got a letter or an email from the woman who does the conscious dating lesbian dating site, which no conscious lesbian site. I can't remember her name right now,
Mhm.
but it was the email 10 reasons why lesbian dating is so hard. And I'm like, ugh. So Barb, let's talk about lesbian dating.
Let's do it.
Okay. So what was it like? How did you start?
Well, when I was ready to start exploring the idea of dating again, I actually was still questioning my sexuality and where I fell. So I joined two separate online dating platforms, one for men and one for women.
Hmm.
And I decided I was going to try dating both and see where I landed. It didn't take me long to shut down
The men
one.
account.
It didn't
That's
take.
actually a really good idea that if you're still questioning, maybe try to date some men and see if it feels right for you.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I did,
How
and
long did it take you to close down that account?
not very long at all. Maybe a couple of months, and I it did actually didn't take me long till I met somebody who, a woman who I really again fell super hard for. And we were together for about 6 months, and it was long distance, as many lesbian relationships are. Uh,
Yeah, it is the reality of dating in the lesbian world a lot of times. My relationship was what, 1,200 miles? I mean, I dated long distance for 18 months.
yeah,
It's just the reality.
it's just the reality. And at the time, I didn't drive. Still didn't have a driver's license. So the
They
onus
had to come to
was on
you.
her to come to see me. And it was during that relationship that I really was like, yeah, I'm definitely a lesbian. Like, it really came to me. It was like I don't ever want to cross back over that bridge again. I'm happy where I am here. The level, it just feels more natural. The level of connectivity is different. Um, you know, so I was able to figure it out that way. Um, and of course, that relationship didn't last either. I've dated several women, some for fairly short term, just like, one date. Um,
How
some
do
for
you
just,
know she's not for you?
oh my goodness. How do you know she's not for you? Well, I mean,
That's the big question. A lot of times, people say, first of all, they're like, "Was it a date?" I'm not quite sure if it was a date,
right, right.
and then stuff like that. But like, you seem to like, you dated. Like, how did you know?
I mean, definitely chemistry is a thing, but I had a really awesome piece of advice from my therapist, which I will share with you.
Okay.
And I wish I had done this right from the start. It would have saved me a little time and heartache. You can have chemistry for a person with a person, but it's not a long-term thing. And that's what I was searching for. I'm not interested in, just short-term relationships, and that's valid if you are. Decide what you want, for sure. If are you looking to get married again? Are you looking to just take it easy and see where this goes? Are you looking for one night stands? All of these options are valid if that's what you want.
Absolutely.
And you have
Yeah.
to be super clear about it. Oh, something my therapist taught me to do was to get out your Excel spreadsheet or your Google Sheets, and you're going to make several columns. One is must-haves, one is deal breakers, and one is would be nice to have. So, for example, one of my deal breakers is smoking.
Hmm.
I won't date a smoker.
Hmm.
So if you meet somebody and they seem like the greatest person in the world and they smoke, I got news for you. Like
Hmm.
it will become an issue and it will become a problem and must
So
haves is a job. Like,
all right. So I'm gonna push back at you.
okay.
Okay, Barb, I just want it to happen naturally. This seems to be too much. Too much. I just want to meet somebody naturally, and this seems like too much work. It feels unnatural.
Right. It might seem a little cold to have to make an inventory of what you want and need. But remember, who are you doing this for?
You,
You.
yeah,
So it is okay. And we are conditioned to not prioritize our own wants and needs.
right.
By articulating our wants and needs, we bring them to the surface, we bring them to the front of our minds.
Hmm.
And that way we can be much more mindful of fulfilling what we need.
Correct.
And like say the smoker thing again.
Hmm.
And again, no judgment if you're a smoker. Like
Yeah, no, yeah, we're just
fine.
using it as an
I'm just
example.
using it as an example. That's one of my deal breakers. It might not be yours or your listeners, but there are. I think an older version of me might have said, "Oh, you know what? She's a smoker, but she's working really hard to quit, or she won't smoke as much, or she might smoke outside." There would be a tendency for me to either want to fix or caretake her,
Hmm.
and that's not my job.
Hmm.
My job is to caretake me.
Right. Exactly.
So it might feel a bit unnatural to make that inventory, but do it.
But I think it's really helpful because you really clarify what you want.
You're doing yourself a favor, you're doing your future people a favor, and of course, the line may shift. You may
Right.
change your mind. That's okay.
Yes. You may be in the beginning being like, I just want to date and have fun. And you might do it for a couple of years and then you say, this is soul sucking for me, or no, I don't want to do it. Then you can change your criteria. It is
Absolutely.
absolutely valid to change your, you can do whatever you want. It's your life.
Yeah, once you make those lists, it doesn't mean they're written in stone,
Mhm.
but it just calls to mind what you need and want in the present moment. And
And I
that's
also, yeah, but I think the deal breakers should always be on. Like, you may add a deal breaker to your list, but I don't know if I would take a deal breaker off because you've met somebody like
oh,
a smoker person, because a lot of women that come out later in life, we are caretakers, and we also struggle with codependency because a lot of us have been raised in chaotic homes.
mhm.
So we think, oh, well, like Barb said, it was such a great example. Oh, I'll fix this, or I'll put up with this.
Or I'll love
And
her
then
enough
that,
that I'll
yeah,
love it out of her.
yes, and then you're trying to change somebody to fit your needs.
And
And
that's not good.
that's not good, unless so, and again, no shade to the smokers. We're just using it as an example because it's an easy example to use and people understand that.
Absolutely.
But it's something, like that it's a deal breaker for you. And so when we're making our list, I think that we should really think about what is a deal breaker for me, you know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and it's interesting for me. For me, on my list is somebody who is addicted to drugs or alcohol.
Yep.
Deal breaker.
Yep.
I And it's really funny. I want to share a little story. Tanda called me once when we were just friends. No, she didn't call me. She was messaging. It was clear to me that she had been drinking. My wife is not a drinker, or she's not a teetotaler, but that's not one of her issues. So I want to be really clear about that. And I realized we were just friends, and I realized she had had a couple of drinks, and I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
And I didn't talk to her for 6 weeks. And then she reached out, and she didn't even know. Like, I mean, I just did stop talking to her, and she didn't even realize it. We joke about it now. But she talked to me, she reached out again, and I really thought about it before answering her because I was like, and then I realized that she wasn't a drinker. It was just a one-time
Mhm.
thing, and but that to me is a deal breaker because I've lived my life with addicts. I
Right.
do not want to live my life with addicts anymore. I
Right.
just don't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Living with someone with unmanaged depression or anxiety is a deal breaker for me. I grew up with a parent who is
Hmm.
unipolar and has PTSD, and so that's a huge trigger for me.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's totally valid. Maybe sometime down the road, I don't know, but that to me is not one that I could ever take off my list.
Yeah,
But
there's things that are not coming off my list.
but there are sure things that get added. The more you date, the more you add to that deal breaker list. Let me tell you. Oh
So
boy.
what did you add to your deal breaker list?
Well, it's interesting that you learn something with every person that you date.
Hmm.
And it might feel discouraging if it doesn't work out. But with every person that you date, you learn what you don't want.
Hmm.
So, for example, second woman I dated, huge red flag. I should have seen it at the time. She said that she doesn't cry.
Hmm.
Well, later on, I learned that that is somebody who has a very difficult time connecting to her own emotions, and
Right.
then wouldn't accept it from me either. So anytime I would start to get teary about something, it would be like, "Don't cry."
Hmm.
Well, do you want to be with a person who is detached from
Their
emotion?
emotions. Right.
Not so
Or
much.
try to control yours.
Exactly.
Yeah. Do you want to be with
So
somebody like that? Right.
no, no, you don't. You learn something with every new person.
So it sounds like to me, it's like an adventure. Like, I mean, it may not have felt like it. Well, maybe it did. It's like an adventure. Like, it's like what I find in our community is that a lot of times women are trying to find their person. I hear it all the time. How am I going to find my person? How am I going to find my person? And it's like, that's not what this is about.
You are your person.
You are
You are.
your person, and you may have to do things that you're not comfortable with at first to
Mhm.
start dating and things like that. But this is about finding community. This is
Mhm.
about finding yourself, and then maybe thinking about dating as an adventure. And I love when people like, Barb is like, oh God, I have stories. And I just published a blog piece, my hot vac summer, with my friend who wrote her 7 dates in 14 days. um, it's just like, just open yourself up to it, and don't settle on a type. Don't say, oh, I'm only going to date butch women. Don't do that. Find women that are like, just date women, all kinds of women. Because my wife says, she goes, basically, we all end up as chapstick lesbians when we're sitting on the couch.
Absolutely, we do. Yes.
We just all, we're in our t-shirts and jeans, and, we all look like, so
Yeah.
it's just interesting. Just be open, you
And
know.
yeah, try it. I mean, for me, it's interesting you talk about, type. I mean, I've traditionally have been really attracted to butch women. I identify as a more femme woman.
Mhm.
Um, and either, really butch or soft butch women is something that I really liked. And I've put that aside to try and date women who are more feminine. I tried it, didn't work out for me. It just seems to be for me that was a piece, but that's okay. You know what? I ended up making a really good friend out of it. She's great. So
Well, and also you just tried it. And so instead of saying no, you said, okay, I'm going to try it and see if it works for me. And
yeah,
sometimes, and there are people that get surprised. I have, like, for example, for myself, I'm with a butch woman. I never thought I'd be with a butch woman. I never knew it. Like, until I opened myself up to this experience, like, I realized I was attracted to butch women, but I didn't I didn't realize it. So, like, in the beginning, I thought I was going to end up with someone like you,
right.
someone femme, because I'm on this more femme side. But then I met somebody that was butch, and I was like, oh damn, that's hot. Yeah.
Yeah, butches are hot. What can I say?
We love you out there,
We
butch men.
love beautiful butches. We love
We
them.
do.
Thank you, Katie Lang, for instilling that, inclination in me.
Yes,
Very
Katie
thankful.
Lang and so
Appreciate
many others. So, Anything you want to add about your dating experiences?
That, dating is definitely an adventure. There are the ups are fantastic, the downs stank.
Mm-hmm.
They're painful. There's I think a perception that it is easier to date women dating
Mm-hmm.
women. That is
Mm-hmm.
not the case. No, it's not any easier than dating in a heteronormative world. It's just different.
Mm-hmm.
And the highs are high, the lows are low. If you find yourself in a space where you're feeling heartbroken or disappointed, this is something I've articulated to many people. I feel like hearts are like Blondie got it wrong. Hearts are not made of glass.
Mm-hmm.
Hearts are made of Nerf balls.
They're
So
spongy.
they're spongy. Your Nerf ball heart may get stomped on. It may get squished, twisted, um, thrown away, but it will always eventually regain its shape. You are going to be okay. It might those heartaches, especially that first breakup after if you date a lesbian for the first time, it can be so painful. It might feel like your heart will never regain its shape, but it does. Give it time. It may not look as shiny and new as when you first got it out of the box, but it still works beautifully. So don't let disappointments discourage you
Mm-hmm.
from keep going. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to learn from each experience what you want and what you don't want. And eventually you date enough, you're going to find somebody, you become more of a person who is confident in what you want,
Mm-hmm.
confident in yourself, confident in your identity. And that's when you attract people who are a good fit for you. So be brave, new
Be
lesbians, be brave.
be brave. You not maybe I'm not straight women.
Yes.
It sort of reminded me of the metaphor of grief. It's this ball, and it's not that the ball grows, it's that you grow around the grief. If you've ever seen the grief jar, and it's like you said, your heart isn't broken. I mean, your heart isn't made of glass, but what ends up happening is I think you learn, right?
Hmm.
And your heart stays the same, but you grow around it. Like you become bigger. You realize, oh, this is what I want. This is what I need. This is what I have to have. All of those things happen. And so, and your heart will recover. And I love the Nerf ball. We're going to have to put that up in social media.
For sure. You can't,
That quote right there is going to be all over social
for
media.
sure. Your heart's a Nerf ball.
Your heart's a Nerf
Absolutely.
ball.
Absolutely. You grow around it and you grow. I really do feel like in the last 5 years, in all of the experiences that I've had, I've finally started to gain something that is like wisdom. Maybe
Yep.
it is wisdom.
Mhm.
So with all of these life experiences, you're coming out of this more sheltered environment. If you're married, at least I did, and you have all these experiences, you gain knowledge, you gain experience, and you gain wisdom, and that only serves you for good.
Well, yes, and also too, you gain compassion. Like you and I, like we were talking about, like judging people that had affairs, and now neither one of us do that because
Mhm.
of the compassion and the complexity, and you
Yeah,
develop empathy. And
big time.
also too, like one of the things that Christina Neff says in Radical Self Compassion is that, is that the universality, like the shared humanity, is really important. So realizing that you're not the only one out there, there are a lot of women that have gone through that. And that's the myth in the queer community, is the myth is everybody figures this out when they're a teenager. And that I have met so many women that have been married that didn't figure. I've met men that figure it out in their 30s. I just got contacted on LinkedIn by somebody who's like a 50-year-old man who just figured it out. So
Hmm.
it takes, for some people it just takes a while, and that's their journey that they're on.
Hmm.
For people that figure it out early, they have other journeys to take.
They sure
they,
do.
they
And
have
one isn't
other journeys.
easier than the other.
Yeah, they just
It's
have
just
other
different.
journeys. It's
It's
just
just
different.
different. A different
Right.
flavor of hard. It's a different flavor of challenge.
Yeah. And and no matter when you come out, it is challenging. Whether you're there for different reasons,
Yes,
but it's challenging. And as like Barb said in the beginning of this, find your community. Go online. If you are brand new to this, go online and or reach out to me and or reach out to Barb. She knows some groups she can put you in, and we would love to help you find your community because that is the number one thing you need to do. So,
agreed.
Barb, when you were coming out, did you have a coming out song? I know.
Yes, it
I read
is.
your. I read
Yes, I absolutely do. And it is like the probably the most stereotypical song
the
that
lesbian anthem.
lesbian anthem. And I guess I'll say the sort of G-rated version of this is the radio was on during an intimate moment, and Closer to Fine
Signed by
came
Little.
on the radio, and it was like my brain exploded with "I'm gay." Like, like this is a sign. I am
I am
gay.
closer to fine.
Here's the gayest song that you could hear in this moment, and it was just, yeah, there was no coming back after that. That is literally the marker from pre to post lesbian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just have to tell you something so funny. Last night I was talking to a client and she had this very beautiful picture behind her because I do everything on Zoom, and it was a group of women. It was an artwork, and I said, "Oh my God, that's really." And we started talking about it. I said, "Yeah, that's so lesbian to have pictures of women up all over your home." She emailed me after the thing. She goes, "I have 8 pictures of women."
How did I not know? But you don't. It's so funny how those
It's
obvious.
like our little signs. I mean, not that anything means, but like it's like you have to add the signs together that you might. I mean, it's like, it's just
Totally.
like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's just so much more obvious in retrospect, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and that happens to us is that like what ends up happening is you end up, it's retrospect. You like your brain saw it one way, but then when your queer lens begins to develop, you start seeing you're like, oh,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
oh, I wasn't. It was a crush. I didn't admire her. It was a
Yeah, I wanted to be with her. Like,
her.
I thought she was cool. I mean,
Yeah,
I
she
did
was
think.
hot, but Okay, book. What was?
Oh,
Yeah, book.
so after that first that breakup with my catalyst, I was gifted from my sister, who is the most wonderful person on earth. I was gifted with this series, part one and two of Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. And they are actually intended to be children's books, but I would highly recommend anyone read them. First of all, the stories are short; they're just one page per woman, and all of the illustrations are done by women, and they are an account of women, past and present, who have done remarkable things, girls and women.
Hmm.
And when I read about the stories of these remarkable women from all walks of life, all nationalities, um, women in science, women in art, women who were political activists, um, just every flavor of woman you can think of who's done something remarkable with their life. I read about so many women and girls overcoming such huge hardships, what would seem like insurmountable obstacles. Women who were fleeing war, women like Malala Yousafzai. Am I saying that right? I never quite say that right, but
Well, I can't say her
I
last.
know. I'm sorry, Malala.
I'm
but
sorry.
women like her, or women who are fleeing Afghanistan, or women who were trying to make it in a man's world.
Hmm.
Women who were early scientists, who were early into medicine before it was common for women to do that. All kinds of really just a constellation of women's stories.
Okay. What was
And
it called again?
it was called Goodnight Stories for Rebel Girls. And when I read about all of these women accomplishing all of these incredibly difficult things, I thought to myself, I can survive this.
Mhm.
I'm not going to be in the depths of despair forever. I can get through what I'm going through.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I say that book saved my life because it was really, I was so down, having lost everything, like literally everything. My home, my family, my belongings, my relationships, like people around me who wouldn't talk to me anymore because I had left my marriage, like all kinds of friendships, everything. I really lost everything. And so when I read about these women, it gave me courage.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. So, how is your life today?
My life today is exciting and
Mhm.
happy and fun, and I uh, I'm dating someone who's absolutely wonderful. My girlfriend Tammy. Um, we have 7 kids between us, so it makes things very exciting and busy.
Busy.
We don't live together, not yet, but it's definitely something I think that's on our future, in our near future. I have found courage to do other kinds of things, to apply the courage that I've learned over
Mhm.
the past 5 years.
Mhm.
It seeps into other areas of your life.
Mhm.
So I'm actually embarking on a change of career, although I'm keeping some of the stuff that I do. But my sister and I are starting a flower farm this year.
Mhm.
And starting a new
That's
business
exciting.
takes a huge amount of courage and fortitude, and it's scary and it's exciting. And I'm no longer afraid of the adventure. I'm I drive. It brings me joy to drive a
Mhm.
car.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
will even be driving to the grocery store and I will just think to myself, I am so happy I can do this. Because for
I know, you
45
don't
years,
have to depend on people anymore. You can do it
I'm
yourself.
so much more self-sufficient. I'm the captain of my own ship, and I might steer off course every once in a while or hit a bump or go through a storm, but I've learned that I can rely on myself to get to where I'm going.
Mhm. Barb, it has been amazing having you on this show today on my show. I've known you for about like 6 months, like 4 months now, 3 months. Like we were like, it's like when you're in these groups, you're aware of people, but sometimes you see their names, you see when they comment, but you don't get to know them. And Barb and I are working together now, and I just want to tell you, you have such joy about you. It is so pleasant to be around you,
Thank
and
you.
I know that that came from a lot of hard work,
Mhm.
and um, and so I'm very grateful to have you in my life, and that I've met you, and that we're working together now and having fun together and helping our community, because Barb and I are very passionate about the later in life community. And so I want to thank you for your time today on coming on the show and talking about lesbian dating and sharing your wisdom with us. It's been an honor to have you today.
Well, the honor's totally mine. I absolutely love the work that we're doing together, and it's such a blessing to be able to help serve other women who have been where we have been. It's
Yes.
deeply, deeply meaningful to me. So thank you so much for having me.
No, you're welcome. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too.